We've regained our composure on the set
have.
now, and we want to tell you about a story that we've been following for about, I guess, 274 days.
Right. We've been tracking this. Like, where's Waldo?
That was, of course, the last time Hillary Clinton had an official press conference. Her campaign has responded by saying, well, she's done a ton of interviews, and it was actually pretty funny. They sent out this thing listing all the interviews she's done. One of them was with Philip Levine, who's the mayor of Miami Beach, Florida, and a really good guy. We have him on the set all the time. But he's a friend of Hillary Clinton.
He's a Clinton supporter.
I remember a few weeks ago she had that kind of pseudo press conference at the journalism conference, which they were giving her hugs and practically throwing flowers on stage and applauding her and giving her softball questions.
You know, I think, honestly, this is really smart for her. She hates the press.
Yes.
She marginalizes the press. There's a fascinating piece in Politico this morning, actually, that breaks down about all the ways that her campaign goes to great lengths to marginalize the press. When she shows up at events, they're sort of kept 400 feet, away. They're kept in a separate house when she's at events. When she goes to fundraising events, they can't even hear her in the other room being muffled.
Right.
Muffled.
And she does that a lot. She basically speaks only to rich people. In this hilarious New York Times piece, a piece that was, like most of them, totally lacking in irony or self-awareness, it says that Hillary, when she's at, say, Steven Spielberg's house, talking to various billionaires, attacks Donald Trump by saying he's an out-of-touch rich guy.
Right.
As she addresses a room of out-of-touch rich people.
But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Tucker, because she is going to hold press conferences, and she'll hold them when she's president. Listen to Brian Fallon. Take a listen.
I think I could safely commit that as President Hillary Clinton would hold press conferences, but the frequency of them is something that I think is something that would just play out as time went on. I think that in general she would continue to take questions in a variety of formats, and I know that there's been an intense focus lately on press conferences. The reality is, in the course of this campaign, she's answered questions in a variety of formats.
Well, I think she was hoping that Donald Trump would self-destruct. And a few weeks ago, when he was just, having a really tough time and his poll numbers were going down, she was probably thinking this was a good strategy. But is it still a good strategy as he's starting to act a whole lot more presidential by many accounts, and he's starting to close the gap in a lot of those polls in battleground states?
That's right. I mean, if the conversation is all about Trump and his personality, she can just say, he's a racist, he's a sexist, no normal person would vote for him, I'm going back to Steven Spielberg's house. But if he can make this about the issues, about immigration, about trade, about jobs, about the economy that Obama has created and she is running on, she's going to be forced to respond.
Well, and she's not going to. If you imagine a press conference right now, what were the questions to be, thrown her way? It's all going to be about this FBI report that we saw last week.
Her honesty and trustworthy.
Exactly.
Even more.
And so, what are the questions she'll have to ask about her brain injury? Why didn't she remember these briefings?
I bet you no one will ask about them. Even though she admitted to the FBI that her brain injury kept her from remembering entire briefings, I don't think anyone will even ask her about that. And
so, Rudy Giuliani on our show earlier this morning, he doesn't buy it. And he thinks that one of three things could possibly be the reason for this problem. Listen.
We have only two answers to why she doesn't know, why the Secretary of State of the United States doesn't know that a C in front of a paragraph means confidential information. One, she's stupid, or two, she's lying. Or possibly three, her brain injury has made her incompetent. I don't know. I happen to think it's the middle one. But I cannot believe that we had a Secretary of State who doesn't know that if you put a C in front of a paragraph in a sensitive document, that means confidential. She can't remember 26 things, like, did she get a briefing on how to handle top secret information? I remember the briefing I got on doing it, and it was 25 or 30 years ago.
And America's mayor, when he was on the program earlier, again said he couldn't believe there was an indictment. And remember the press conference that James Comey gave at the FBI, and he laid everything out. I was going, oh my gosh, Hillary Clinton is going to get indicted. And then because there was no intent, they said, he didn't recommend charges for the DOJ to do that. And then in this big document dump that we had on Friday, it wasn't video, it wasn't audio, it was written notes. And Mr. Mayor brought up that it was in small font and it was done on a holiday weekend, just like a lot of these other document dumps. Chuck Todd of NBC, I was reading The Hill this morning, they outlined it, have the verbatim. He says, as an American citizen, it bothers him that the FBI only took written notes of the July 2nd interview with the former Secretary of State and did not record it or create a transcript. Why?
Because the real problem with this is not just that it's helping Hillary get elected, which it is. It's that it's shaking the faith that all of us grew up having in the system itself. All of us grew up believing that the justice system really was blind and, a candidate and a plumber were treated the same way by law enforcement and the courts. And now we're learning that the FBI basically is helping Hillary Clinton. Like, that is a third world scenario, and it's a nightmare for all of us, no matter who wins.
So Donald Trump is out on the campaign trail talking to African-American voters, potentially in Detroit. Hillary Clinton is being quiet. She's hiding behind closed doors with celebrities right now, raising a lot of money, and it may be a brilliant strategy. She raises all this money. She gets to put out all of these ads all over the country and blanket the airwaves and remains quiet. But meanwhile, when these celebrities go to one of these events, the breakdown of what they have to pay is fascinating. So if you have a child who's under 16 years old, you're allowed to have the child come up and ask questions. You have to pay $2,700 for a child's question. Like, do you...
That instead of reporter questions.
Yeah, like, what do you like fresh vegetables? Like, what, I don't know, what's in your garden, that sort of thing. And if you want a family photo, you've got to shell out $10,000 to have a family photo taken. We need to get into this racket.
Oh, we definitely need to get into this racket.
$100,000 for a sit-down dinner? Well, she's bringing in a lot of money.
But this is a person who hasn't driven a car or flown commercial in decades, who surrounds herself with the same group of people who were with her when I covered her 20 years ago. And this is the person who thinks the New York Times is unfair to her. Reporters worship her like a god, protect her at every turn, and she thinks they're too tough. This is an out-of-touch person.
Tucker, and this is the same candidate, too, that has a history of roping off the media, literally with a rope to keep them at distance. Yet on Hill Force One, the press corps is going to start traveling with her. Do you think that's going to make a difference?
They're going to be locked. I've flown on many of these planes. Just because you're on the same plane does not mean you see the person. I mean, really, they're going to be locked in a cage at the back.
Well, and meanwhile, we see some of these polls tightening in states like Wisconsin and Virginia. Larry Sabato from Virginia a few weeks ago said he thought it was crazy that Donald Trump was wasting time in Virginia. Now this morning, tied in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
True.
So this could be hurting her.
Still doesn't explain his speech in Washington State, but whatever.
That's true.